Parker Town Council meeting for July 15th at 7 p.m. All council members are present with the exception of Councilman Josh Rivero, who will be back for our next meeting, so that's going to be exciting. Jeff's not in yet. There's always got to be one.
It wasn't
Mr. Toborg. Okay, everyone turn and look at Jeff. Oh, he's in.
Yeah. I'm going to mark you present and probably see what happens.
All right, she's going to do that. But in the meantime, before we get started, I have a very important request to ask of everyone. If everyone could please stand up for me. And yes, in a second, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, great.
But before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we need to recognize the fact that tomorrow is John Diak's 27th birthday. So please join me in singing Happy Birthday to John. So, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Johnny. Happy birthday to you. Yay!
27 special.
And anyone who brought the paddle can spank later, all of that jazz. But in the meantime, join me in honoring our nation with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much. All right, let's get started. First item on our agenda is our Parker Chamber of Commerce updates. Do we have anybody from the Parker Chamber here tonight? I do not believe so. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item, which is public comment. This is general public comment for items that are not on our agenda. If you're here for an item that's on our agenda, there'll be public comment at that time. So the way public comment works for this point and later on for each agenda item, there's a 3-minute time limit. There's a clock above me, and I've got one on the back room. You'll come on up and you'll state your name and address for the record. Then the clock will start counting down. You have your opportunity to give public comment. When it gets down to 0, I will thank you very much and invite the next person up. So with that, we'll open up general public comment at 7:03 p.m. if there's anyone here wishing to address council. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:03. Apparently, whoever used this microphone last must have been really soft-spoken because I keep getting feedback about this range. Can you guys hear it? Hello? Yeah, it's a little high. So I apologize for the audio tonight. All right, next item up is our reports, items, comments from mayor and council. Mr. Diak.
Yes. All right. I had on the 10th, a DRCOG sub-regional forum. What that is my fellow board members from DRCOG from Douglas County, Castle Rock, Lone Tree, myself. We all got together and talked to RTD and CDOT about their long-range plans. On the 10th, I also attended the Douglas County Transportation Plan open house. Saw a few staff members there as well. On the 11th, I had an E470 meeting, and the only item Parker related was I abstained, but the board voted to approve an annexation. There's a little piece of E470 roadway that's still an unincorporated Douglas County, but adjacent to Parker and Aurora, so it was an administrative cleanup action. On the 12th, I took part in our investment advisory committee. We have 2 community members who are in the financial industry, meet with our investment advisor, our town's investment advisor, and just review our policy and their performance. And then, let's see here. Oh, the 13th, I was Mayor Pro Tem due to Mayor Wade's inability to attend the 2nd annual card show at Morningstar. Mm-hmm. So, great event. It was very, very, very hot, but well attended, and everybody appreciated our attendance.
What was your favorite car?
They were all winners, Mike.
Oh, I thought you'd be like, the blue one.
I don't pretend to know a whole lot about cars, specifically that level of car. But it was interesting to kind of go around and see all the different different cars. Some were old, restored back to period. Some were souped up. So, I mean, to me, it was just fascinating to kind of see what each person did to their own unique cars and the stories that they had. It was just quite enjoyable.
Cool, thank you. Cheryl?
Yeah, I went to the Parker Water and Sand District meeting. They've kind of ramped up a lot of the construction. It's kind of interesting to see what they're doing. Talked to the fire district. Their board meetings are the same night as our meetings, so I can't attend those anymore, but to get an update of where they're at. They are in support of the pending action we have here, which is good, and that's about it.
Okay, Debbie?
On Friday night, Councilman Diak was also at what I call the PACE Big Reveal. They announced this upcoming season that was well attended. Lots of people were purchasing things in advance, so we should have a fun and exciting year. Also this afternoon, Councilman Toberg and I had a Parks and Rec meeting. One of the things that our Parks and Rec department is looking at are e-bikes, and some have ridden them. They did not wreck. They didn't tear up the $7,000 e-bike. I don't know how they let them ride that, but I'm probably not going to get that same option, but I'm going to try it. We're talking, there are different municipalities around the metro area that have adopted some rules and regulations regarding e-bikes. There are 3 classes currently. Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. Class 1 and Class 2 are let's say, less motorized or not motorized. And that's something that we're looking at so that they could be allowed potentially on our trail system. Along with that, we are discussing, it's being discussed in Parks and Recs, that soft trails might be adjacent.
I know, I'm trying to see where
We're getting feedback.
I don't know if it's us up here. I think it's one of the mics over there. Could you guys turn those?
I don't know.
You're both are off? Okay, there's another mic picking up.
I'll turn it off.
Okay, well, there, and now it just stopped. All right, go ahead.
So looking at soft surface trails adjacent to our current trails so that people that are riding on the e-bikes or bicycles, runners and walkers could be on the soft surface trail adjacent, so we could have coexistence in a very peaceful way. So that's happening, and then I have 2 other meetings this week.
Cool, all right. Jeff?
So in addition to what I reported last week, I attended the DBA in Councilmember Williams' spot on Wednesday. They're doing some great stuff, including, is it 30-second commercials?
30 to 60.
30 to 60-second commercials of the town. So they've got a Legend High Schooler doing all that for them, so working with Ann Barrington. So if anybody has a high schooler that has that affinity for video, they should reach out to Ann Barrington.
And they get
their
hours.
Their hours.
Can be included.
Their community service hours. Also, we, as Councilmember Lewis, we had Parks and Recreation today. I'm ready to ride an e-bike. I don't know. Except the whole weight thing, I don't want it to slow me down, so, but.
I'm okay.
Councilmember Lewis said she'd go fast on it, so that was good. And then we met with communications today, and one of the things I just want to shout out, I just should have said this last week, but Brooke Spain and the communications department with their red, yellow, black, green, red, yellow, green in terms of weathering. They not only put an emergency operation in place, but they got to test it that night. So, and you were out there leading the test, and so kudos to them. I mean, you don't usually get to put a plan in place right after you build it. So we now know it's a tried
I held
and
the
true.
flagpole for the lightning to see if it was really.
Did they talk you into it?
They did.
Okay.
Like, go stand in the field with this big metal pole.
That's all I have.
Okay, Renee.
So my nephew works for Trek, so I don't know if we can strike some kind of a deal with them or not.
With the
e-bikes.
e-bikes.
So it's worth maybe a try. Oh, that feedback is bad.
Yeah.
My mic is off.
I have no idea whose that is.
So, I was driving around town today, And the wayfinding signs are really, really impressive. So if people haven't seen them or haven't taken notice of them, it's really nice because it doesn't matter what street you're on almost, you can have a sign that's pointing you to something in town. We had our council meeting last week, and then I flew out of town for a family reunion, and then flew back in town for this, so I didn't attend any meetings.
All right. I think it was my microphone doing the feedback, so maybe I'll just yell. So for me, the only meeting I've been attending is the fact that it is like crunch time for rehearsals for the full Monty. So here's my pitch again. If you have not purchased your tickets to see the full Monty at the Pace Center opening this Friday, shame on you. ParkerArts.org, head out there right now. Don't just buy a ticket, buy like 10 tickets, you know. But truthfully, if you haven't seen it, it is an amazing play. It's so much more. Now, full disclosure, it is an 18 and older play. Don't bring the kiddos to it. It is the full Monty. If you don't know what that is, look it up online. But it is a very, very well done, very emotional. You're gonna split your sides laughing. There's parts you're gonna cry. But it's very, very well produced, and it's done by Sasquatch Productions, which one of the two owners of Sasquatch is a local Parker resident. And so, any rates, and I don't sing in it that you can really hear. I sing a little bit, but you don't have to worry. Your ears won't hurt too bad. But we open up on Friday, so definitely come and see it. All right, so next up is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted with one motion and one vote unless a council member asks to have something removed. See, I can't even turn my own microphone back on. That's just crazy.
Shift these microphones down. Like Renee, you get one of mine and then.
I can take Renee's. You guys don't talk as much as I do anyway, so I'll do that. All right, I'll go off of Renee's. We're good. So consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted with one motion and one vote. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed for further discussion. So council, what you have in front of you right now is consent agenda items 5A through 5C.
Okay, Mayor, I would like to remove items A and B into a separate consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion from Council Member Pogue. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Cheryl to remove consent agenda items 5A and 5B into a separate item. Are you going to pull it up, Chris, on your thing, or should I just do a voice vote? Okay, so in a sec, there'll be a vote for that.
Why?
Just a separate consent agenda, not to remove totally.
Well, okay.
You just want to vote on C by separate, correct?
A and B, yeah, and C separate.
I don't understand.
So what are we voting for here?
You're voting for you made a motion
Okay.
to remove items 5A and 5B, so an affirmative would be removing those two. And Chris, our monitors aren't on at all, so I don't know if,
Should we turn them on?
I mean, mine's turned on, but there's no signal on anything up here. Like everything, okay, there we go. Motion failed. So in front of council right now is items 5A through 5C on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion for those, please.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion from Renee and a second from Debbie on items 5A through 5C. As soon as Chris resets it, it'll be time to vote. Motion passes with one no vote from Cheryl Pogue. Next item up is our town administrator's report. All of you have received a copy in your box. For those of you watching at home on our Facebook live stream, if you go to our website, parkeronline.org, you can see our town administrator's report that comes out quarterly. It is chock full of incredibly amazing information about the town of Parker and anything you would ever want to know, so definitely check it out. So, item number 7 is a presentation of our CAFR from Clifton Larson Allen. This is time for all of you guys who love numbers and accounting to be ready to roll. Just one of these times I would like one of you guys from the firm though to come like in a Hawaiian shirt and like Bermuda shorts, you know, and be like, hey, we're your accountant, man, you know. Instead, you're always in suits.
That's April 16th, Mike.
That's April 16th, the day after tax day. All right, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please. Go ahead and hit your button, your mic's off.
There you go.
Jake Houlihan, 11630 South Cormorant Circle. So I want to start off by thanking council for having us here tonight. I'm going to present two separate documents tonight. One is the summary of the financial statement audit, and the other is a management letter comment communicating certain internal control items identified during the audit. Before I get started too, I want to thank Rhonda and Mary Lou. They do such a great job preparing the financial statements and all their staff that really makes the audit go very smoothly, so we appreciate that. So again, I'm here to present the 2018 financial statement audit results. The audit is a yearly process that's very important. The town provides the citizens financial statements which demonstrate accountability. So we have audited the town's financial statements and given a clean opinion. As stewards of the town, you should expect nothing less than a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that can be provided in this type of engagement. I'd like to call your attention to the fact that the financial statements do contain certain estimates. Those estimates are developed by management with assistance from other people sometimes. The most significant estimate in your financial statements is your net pension asset this year. So that's your proportionate share of FPPA's net pension asset. We also communicate any difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There were none. Everybody's wonderful to work with. So again, we really appreciate that. And lastly, we would communicate any uncorrected or corrected misstatements identified as part of our audit. There were none this year, so everything materially was accurate in our opinion. And then we do call your attention to the fact that the financial statements do contain certain unaudited information. Our auditor's opinion will identify what is audited and what is not, so be sure to read that and take a look at the unaudited information if you would like. The second document I'm going to go over is the management letter comment. So as part of our audit, we do test internal controls, we examine internal controls, but ultimately we do not opine on internal controls. We do, however, identify specific items throughout the audit that might be necessary to communicate to yourselves here tonight. Those items can fall into one of three classes, one being a material weakness, which means something is very wrong in the financial statements, could become materially misstated, another being a significant deficiency, and lastly being an other matter. So what I'm communicating tonight is an other matter. So during our audit procedures, we noted that the town had multiple purchasing card transactions which were not properly authorized prior to being processed. So there's a risk that fraudulent activity could happen if that's the case. So we would recommend that the town implement stronger controls to make sure that all these types of transactions are in fact approved before they are processed. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Lou Brown. If there are any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions for Jake?
No? Thank you,
No big
everyone.
accounting questions? Come on.
I mean, there's a bunch of new standards coming out.
Oh, no, we want to stay awake for the rest of the meeting, so.
They will put us all to sleep, including
Including the accountants?
Yes, that is very true. I do want to follow up with Jake's comment about the management letter, emphasize again the fact that we did get a clean opinion and there are no material issues with our financial statements. The item around the P-card transactions that the auditors identified will be addressed in two ways. And really, it's just a continuation of two steps that we have in place today. So what was identified were employees who either were not approving their own purchases and readying them for their supervisor's review, or it was the supervisor who was not reviewing their employees' statements. So today, what we do is we have everyone go through training prior to receiving a P card, and then we also do send an email out. It's generated by the Wells Fargo system, reminding people to prepare those reviews. So going forward, so that we don't have this finding again next year, because I know Jake, and they will look again next year to see if we're doing things better. So what we're going to do is require annual training of every single employee who holds a P card, and also sign documentation that they have attended that. In addition, Tracy, who you all know, so our procurement officer will be going through, and prior to the system closing down, She will be sending an email out to those employees who have not done the work that they were supposed to. So one more reminder. And then if we get to the end of the process and there are still people who have not completed that, we will create a list and Michelle will get to weigh in then. So we have gone over those process steps with the auditors. They are satisfied that those are appropriate and should get us out of the situation that we're in. Thank you.
Questions for Mary Lou, guys? You good? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so next item up is our public hearings. We're going to start with item 8A. This is a public hearing for ordinance number 1.523.3 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to adopt the 2019 revised budget for the town of Parker and to make appropriations for the same. Rhonda, you are going to be our superstar tonight.
I am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this budget revision is to amend the appropriated funds for 2019. The total budget amendment is a net increase of $42,330. The detail of this amendment can be found in Exhibit A in Ordinance 1.523.3. Am I trying to be away? Is that feedback? No.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Now, are you guys getting, because now we're not hearing the feedback.
No, I just didn't know because.
Yeah.
Okay. So the high-level overview is the general fund will be increasing revenues and expenditures by $1,000. And this is coming from the court division for new revenue that they are going to be receiving and spending out for classes that defendants have to take. And then we have the Parks and Recreation Fund, the net increase of expenditures by $7,330. And there will be a budget transfer from Recreation Fund to the Parks and Recreation Fund for a capital project that was originally budgeted in the Recreation Fund, but now it's going to be part of the Parks and Recreation Fund. So that is an increase in the Parks and Recreation Fund by $500,000. So the net revision for the Parks and Recreation is $492,670, and that's a reduction because of the increase in revenue there. And that is due, all of that is due to revisions in the scopes of several projects in the Parks and Recreation Fund, including the High Plains Trail and the H2 O'Brien renovation. The Cultural Fund will be increasing expenditures by $6,300 due to an increase of the custodial contract. The Recreation Fund, increase of expenditures by $3,700, same reason, custodial contract. And then we have the Capital Improvements Fund to increase expenditures by $525,000 for power line undergrounding. The revenue to offset this expenditure has already been budgeted, and it stems from an IRA franchise agreement that we have with them to underground specific power lines throughout the town. And that is the full summary. If there's any other details you guys have any questions on, I can answer.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Rhonda?
I have one, if that's
Cheryl,
all right.
go ahead.
On the capital improvement fund for the undergrounding,
Yes.
you do have funds coming in for that, but you're not reflecting any funds here.
The funds are already in the 2019 budget.
Okay.
We estimate the amount at the beginning of the year, and then when the plans are determined throughout the year, that's when we increase the expenditure to match.
I didn't know whether I should be looking at it under supplemental revenue to offset that.
No, it's already budgeted in there.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions for Rhonda? No? All right, thank you very much. We'll open it up for public comment at 7:23 PM if there's anyone here to address council on this item. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:24, and I would entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 1.523.3 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion from John and a second from Debbie. Council, in just a few seconds, you'll get your little voting screen and you'll get to vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up, this is item 9, which are our ordinances. The first one is number 9A. This is ordinance number 1.533.1 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance amending ordinance number 1.533, series 2019, finally adopted and approved on May 23rd, 2019, relating to the leasing of certain town property and the execution and delivery by the town of a site lease, a lease purchase agreement, and other other financing documents in connection therewithin. Mary Lou, you are going to lead us through the presentation.
I am. So all that legalese boils down to we're going to go back and relook at the ordinance that was passed by council on May 23rd related to our debt refinancing that we're doing, or debt refunding. So as I mentioned, this was originally passed on the 23rd, and we've got a couple of number changes that we needed to get reflected into it. Those number changes are reflected on the second page of the ordinance in subparagraph, it's section 2, subparagraph C. We are replacing the maximum annual repayment cost that was originally $2.250 million. That's being up to $2.67 million. And then the total repayment cost is being increased from $35.89 million to $43 million. The reason for that change is we had a little misunderstanding in how the accounting had been done originally for the $3.5 million that was sitting in our trust account with Wells Fargo. We found that we actually need to account for that, so that pulls our cash balance down and increases our expense. As a result of that, because that kept, and I know John, he holds me to always knowing what that ratio of cash to total appropriations is going to be. So with the change that we did in last week's council meeting that was approved, where we increased our expenditures by that $3.5 million, our cash to total appropriation at the amended budget level is 26.8%. If we had moved forward with an additional $4 million payment to pull down the principal on that debt, we would have gone below that 25% threshold that council has established. So contrary maybe to how my memo sounded, we are not out of cash. We have plenty of cash. We have over $15 million. So we're in good shape that way. This is just a change in our plans to make sure that we stay within the parameters that council expects us to work within. And again, then the changes that are in this ordinance are just changing parameters that were approved by council prior.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Mary Lou?
I do.
Cheryl?
All right. Mary Lou, could you explain to us exactly what the savings will be on the interest overall through this action?
So I can't say exactly what it's going to be, because that will all be dependent upon where we are the day that the sale actually takes place.
Rough terms then.
We are expecting actually that the numbers will be better than what they were, just because the interest rate will be better, because interest rate has continued to decline, and we may, who knows, see another rate cut by the Fed by that time. Again, it's just real hard to say where we're going to end up. I'm expecting a couple $100,000 savings a year as a result of this, that then will, as we get into the budget retreat in September, you'll hear me talking about repurposing a lot. So we're going to take those savings that are coming from the debt refinancing, and we will be repurposing those dollars for other needs in the town.
Okay. Other questions? Jeff?
So, Mary Lou, on the $3.5 million that was in reserves on the existing note, that is still coming back to us.
Yes, it is. It always was ours.
Okay.
That's where the
But we were
confusion.
going to apply it to the
Yes.
principal and
Yes,
pull it down.
and that is exactly what is happening. That $3.5 million was in a trust account at Wells Fargo with our name on it still. So it is our money, and we will be applying it towards the principal, which will help bring that principal down and give us that much more savings.
Okay.
Answer your question?
Yep. Okay, other questions? No? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment at 7:29 PM, if there's anyone here to address council. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:29 PM, and I would entertain a motion on 9A.
I move to approve ordinance number 1.533.1 on second reading.
$5 million that was in reserves.
Oh, that was me. All right, we have a motion from Cheryl, and we have a second from Renee. Council, in just a sec, you'll get to click that button. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is item 9B. This is ordinance number 8.30 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to add a new chapter 4.11 entitled Impact Fees to the Parker Municipal Code. And Kristen, you are going to lead the way.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight the first ordinance we're looking at is ordinance number 8.30. This is going to add a new chapter 4.11 entitled Impact Fees. And I did prepare a PowerPoint because this is a pretty lengthy ordinance with a lot of numbers to crunch. And Bryce is going to be my assistant.
So when she gives you the finger, you got.
I mean, was it a whisper click? Is that what we had?
Whisper click.
So just by way of background, Council has been briefed in 3 previous study sessions on October 22nd, April 22nd, and June 10th, when Tischler-Bice came in to talk about the progress and results of the impact fee study. That's a necessary component of adopting an impact fee ordinance. On June 11th, Tischler-Bice met with a group of stakeholders, including Planning Commission members and members of the development community, to go over the results of that impact fee study. And then the final report was delivered to the town on June 25th. It's attached to the ordinance as Exhibit A. So as a reminder of what impact fees are, they are one-time payments for new developments' proportionate share of the capital cost of infrastructure within the town. The infrastructure categories that were studied by Tischler-Bice and that are included in the ordinance include parks and recreation, courts, police, general government, public works, and transportation. As a reminder, impact fees can only be used for capital improvements or debt service for growth-related infrastructure. They can't be used for operations and maintenance, for personnel, replacement of infrastructure, or correcting existing deficiencies. And they are paid by new development. They're paid at the time of building permit. So the impact fee amounts, I've listed them here. Again, this is on new residential development within the town. This ordinance will take effect on September 1st, so it would be for building permits issued after September 1st for new development, residential development. For single-family detached, you can see that the impact fee is broken down by those categories. It has to be accounted for and remain in those categories and spent according to those categories. So the majority of the impact fee is parks and recreation. You can see there at $5,289. The total impact fee for a single-family detached unit is $9,413. For a single-family attached unit, it's $5,776, and for a multifamily apartment unit, it's $5,046. There is a credit given for the excise tax that is paid. So, and we'll get to that in a minute on the slide, on a future slide. The non-residential impact fee amounts, these are a per square foot number. And you can see the largest portion is transportation. So for retail, they are going to pay an impact fee of $3.91 essentially per square foot. For office, it's $1.979. Industrial is just under $1 per square foot, and then institutional at $1.967. So other provisions of the ordinance, as I mentioned before, were required to account for the impact fees separately by each of those categories and then spend them only within those categories. There is a provision for credits because you cannot sort of have the development pay twice. You have to avoid double dipping. So the ordinance provides for a credit to be given for excise tax that is paid, and then if a development were to provide for the construction of any sort of system level improvement, not a project-specific improvement, but a regional improvement, there is a process in there for a credit on those. It's also a process for refunds and appeals, and a provision that provides that impact fees will be increased annually according to the construction cost index. And finally, a requirement that council review these fees every 5 years, and we would do that by updating our impact fee study and come back to you with numbers that may increase or decrease depending on what our infrastructure needs look like in the town. So I want to show you a little bit of how the excise tax credit will work. When someone comes in to pull a building permit, you will see that they would pay the impact fee, and then we would subtract out the current excise amount. So the actual amount that they would be paying, writing the check to the town, would be for $4,426 per unit for a single-family detached. That's the portion that would be going towards impact fees, and then they'd be writing a check for $4,987 for the excise tax. And then you see it broken down for single-family attached and multifamily apartment as well. As well, there's also a credit that's given on the non-residential side as well. So they would pay the current excise tax amount of $37 or 37 cents a square foot, and then we would give credit for that. And the excise or the impact fee amount that they would be paying is $3.54 a square foot, for example, for retail. As I mentioned before, impact fees would be effective for building permits that are issued after September 1st, 2019. And if later on the agenda tonight we have an excise tax question that you may be passing to be placed in front of the voters, if that passes at the November 5th election, the impact fees would be repealed at that time. And we recommend approval.
Council, do you have any questions for Kristen?
I do have one item to note. I should clarify. On the Public Works impact fee amount between first reading and second reading, I had misplaced a decimal point, and so those numbers have been corrected and are correct to match the impact fee report in the ordinance that's attached on second reading.
Excellent. Those darn decimal points.
It's a lawyer
Thing. Lawyers and accountants.
Yeah.
All right. Questions for Kristen? Anybody? No? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment at 7:37 p.m. If you're wishing to address council, this is the time. Watch your step, young lady. Our insurance isn't that good, so I want to make sure. All right. Name and address for the record, please, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Heidi Williams, 9033 East Easter Place. I'm with the Home Builders Association. And I sent you all a letter. Hopefully you received that today. Sorry about the late notice, but I had to put a lot of thoughts together before I could get that letter out to you to make sure that you understood what I was talking about. As you know, this is a significant impact to our to the Home Builders Association as far as this large amount of money that's going to be charged to each single-family home. And so what we have to look at is the performance that the builders have. They have a certain amount of money financed for a certain amount of time for their projects. And so implementing this on September 1st is very quick. And also want to just say that for every $1,000 that is added to the price of a home, it pushes out about 1,350 people from being able to afford home ownership in each different maybe pocket of income levels. And so what you're doing is you run the risk of kind of missing out that middle income person like a police officer, firefighter, teacher from being able to afford a home. So just kind of thinking that through when we're adding impact fees is something I would ask you to do always. But our request is simply this: push the implementation back to February 1st. That would be really helpful for the performance so that, you know, those extra fees aren't causing even more cost to the home buyer. And we would ask that you would consider a 2 to 3 year phase-in on the impact fees if the excise tax doesn't pass the ballot. If the February 1st implementation date would give some time on that to see if that ballot measure does pass, which I think it probably will. And so it would just give us a little bit more certainty on what our fees will be. So I appreciate you listening to me, appreciate y'all reading my letter, and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Next up, public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:39 p.m. and I would entertain further discussion or a motion on this item.
I have 2 questions.
2 questions. This is the time.
So, Kirsten,
You're going to make her walk all the way
I
back
was gonna
up
say, but
there.
then she's halfway up.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. On your apartment unit, is that per door or is that for an apartment complex?
That's per unit, so,
Per
yeah,
door.
per apartment.
Per door. And then when is the last time that Parker addressed an increase in the excise tax or the impact fee?
So we had impact fees in the 90s, and then they were repealed when we passed the excise tax, which I believe was in 1999. And then the excise tax has an annual increase, but it's tied to CPI, not to the construction cost index. So it does go up every year.
Okay. What on average has it gone up? Do you know?
Do you know?
Oh, gosh, Mary Lou's going to kill me because I'm wrong.
It's like 3%. Yeah.
The inflation, yeah.
So virtually no increase over 20 years.
Correct.
Thank you. Other questions, Chip? No? Other questions from council? No? Okay, I would entertain a motion then, please.
I will move to approve ordinance number 8.30 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion from Cheryl and a second from Renee. Council, in just a sec, your boxes will pop up for your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is item 9C. This is for excise tax. There are, let's see here, 3 parts to this, so I'm going to read all 3 in before Kristen gets started. So we've got C1 is ordinance number 8.20.4 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance repealing Chapter 4.11 of the Parker Municipal Code entitled Impact Fees and amending Chapter 4.07 of the Parker Municipal Code entitled Development Excise Tax, subject to the approval of the registered electors of the town at the special election on November 5th, 2019. C2 is ordinance number 1.534 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance submitting a ballot question to the registered electors of the town of Parker at the November 5th, 2019 special election to raise additional revenue through an increase in the excise tax imposed on new residential development. And item C3, which is resolution number 19-017.1, a resolution to amend resolution number 19-017, series of 2019, a resolution calling a special town election on November 5th, 2019 concerning the provision of high-speed internet services, telecommunications services, and/or cable television services within the town of Parker to amend certain sections of the town of Parker Home Rule Charter to add as a purpose of the special election a ballot question to raise additional revenue through an increase in the excise tax imposed on new residential development. Whew. Kristen. You want to repeat all those for me?
I'm going to.
But you're an attorney. You like
It's gonna be
eat
the
on
next
that. You
slide.
live that stuff.
Yeah, I
Live for
drafted
it.
that ballot,
Yeah.
or that ordinance title for sure. So again, there are 3 items here, and I'm going to run through them. I'm going to primarily focus on the first 2. Ordinance 8.20.4 is the one that actually amends Chapter 4.07 where excise taxes are housed. And then if the excise tax question passes, it will repeal Chapter 4.11, which is the impact fee ordinance you just passed. And then Ordinance 1.534 is the ordinance that submits the ballot question to the electors on November 5th, the question about the excise tax and whether that should be increased on new residential development. And then the last is just that we need to add that we're going to be, one of the purposes of the election is going to be to consider this excise tax question. Next slide. So what is an excise tax? It is a tax on new development within the town of Parker. It's also paid at building permit. It was first approved by voters in November of 1999. It does impose a greater tax on new residential development than on new non-residential development because of the greater impact caused by new residential development. The uses that are specified in the code that we can use excise tax for are capital improvements for major streets, park and recreation purposes, expansion of administrative facilities, provision of law enforcement services, including facilities, the cost accounting, management, and government of the Development Excise Tax Fund, payment of obligations for major street purposes, parks and recreation facilities, administrative facilities, or law enforcement facilities. And then this is the new use that is being added by this ordinance, which would be payment to the fire and emergency service provider for provision of public safety services within the town. So the excise tax amounts for this, again, this is on new residential development. This is not on anyone who currently has a home in Parker. It's new residential development only. New construction, the current excise tax for a single-family home right now is $4,987. The proposed excise tax amount, if it's approved by the voters, would be $10,178 per unit. For a single-family attached unit, it's $6,337. And then for a multifamily apartment, it's $5,567. And to answer Councilmember Toberg's, that's per door in the apartment unit, or in the apartment building. The excise tax amount for non-residential would not be increased at all. It would maintain its current level of $37 a square foot. Other provisions of the ordinance, it will repeal the impact fees if it's passed by the voters on the November 5th election. It adds that additional purpose to pay the fire and emergency provider for public safety services. It also changes the way the excise tax is increased annually from a CPI adjustment to a reliance on the construction cost index, which we feel is a better measure of how those costs should be increasing year to year. And it would become effective upon passage by the voters. I'm available for questions.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Kristen? No? Seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment at 7:46 PM if there's anyone wishing to address council on this item or these items. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:46, and there are 3 different items, so I would entertain further discussion or 3 different motions, please.
I move,
Them all at one time, or?
We have to do them individually. Yeah.
I move to approve ordinance number 8.20.4 on second reading.
Second?
We have a motion from Debbie and a second by Renee. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And on the next item?
I move to approve ordinance number 1.534 on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Renee and a second by Debbie. Council, in just a sec, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And for the third item for C?
I move to approve resolution number 19-017.1 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion, without the second reading part, yeah. We have a motion by Renee and a second by Debbie.
But I hit the button and or hit something and it logged completely out, so.
You're logged completely out? Okay. So, Chris, you'll have to manually put in Debbie's vote. So Debbie, would you let Chris know how you want to vote?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm working on it. Here we go. Joint meeting.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is item D. This is ordinance number 9.292 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to approve the delegation and participation agreement by and between the town of Parker and the city and county of Denver for the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program. Bryce, you're going to lead us through.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Back in 2013, the City and County of Denver and the Metro Mayor's Caucus partnered to create the Metro Mortgage Assistance, the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program to help home buyers with their down payments. The town participated in the program until it expired in November 2018. The program helped 32 new home buyers purchase homes in the town of Parker with a total amount of $347,694 in assistance. With the expiration of the program in 2018, City and County of Denver has launched an updated version in 2019 to replace that program. The new program allows for assistance up to 5% of the total mortgage cost. It's a second mortgage with 0% interest that is forgivable after 3 years. There is no maximum purchase price. In order to qualify, households can make up to $134,850, which is 150% of AMI, which is area median income. They must have a 640 credit score and must complete a home buyer education course. This program was made available to all metro cities by the City and County of Denver. It's funded at $50 million. By participating in the program, the town will not incur any costs or liability. This is another tool to increase homeownership opportunities in the town of Parker. Staff recommends that Town Council adopt ordinance number 9.292 to approve a delegation and participation agreement for Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program. As always, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Bryce. Council, do you have any questions for Bryce on this item?
I do.
Cheryl?
Bryce, would you explain where the funds come from and what happens if we don't approve this?
So the funds originally came from private activity bonds, and at this point, that was back in 2013. At this point, it's just money that is being reinvested since 2013. So it's money that's just in the program from being paid back in other investments. If we don't participate, it just means that potentially our housing market's a little less competitive with our neighbors who are participating in the program. It's just one more tool, again, for folks moving here to have the opportunity for home ownership.
And do the funds revert to the primary authority on this for distribution elsewhere?
Yeah, so the $50 million can be distributed anywhere in the metro area. So if it's not to us, it'll be to another jurisdiction.
Other questions, Cheryl?
No.
Other questions from council? No? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment at 7:52 PM. There's only a few public left. I'm gonna have to start calling you guys out. No, look, everyone got scared. All right, seeing none, we're gonna close public comment at 7:52 PM, and I'll entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 9.292 on second reading.
I'll second that.
Motion by Debbie and a second by Cheryl. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is item E. This is ordinance number 1.535 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance to approve the memorandum of understanding among the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Douglas, the Douglas County Mental Health Initiative, Caring Communities of Colorado LLC, and the Town of Parker and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office concerning a community response team. The one, the only, Jim Serapis is here to lead us through this presentation.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What you have before you is a bill for an ordinance to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Town of Parker, Douglas County Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County Mental Health Initiative, Caring Communities of Colorado LLC, and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office regarding the community response team. I had to write all that stuff down to remember it.
Right.
This community response team is a grant-funded program that assigns a licensed clinician at no cost to the town to be paired up with one of our officers that will be responding to mental health calls for service within our community. This unit will address follow-up on 911 calls and other call sources surrounding mental health issues. They will conduct on-scene evaluations that may result in mental health placements. And last but not least, it will help divert people from emergency departments and jail and will directly connect them with the appropriate mental health services that they need at the time of the call and follow-up resources as well. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. Douglas County's been doing it for several years. Castle Rock has been doing it for several years. It's been working out very, very well, so we're going to start participating in that. I would be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have. If not, I would recommend approval.
Council, any questions for Jim? No? All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and open it up for public comment at 7:55 PM. And seeing no movement, we'll close public comment at 7:55, and I'll entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 1.535 on second reading.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion from Cheryl, and we have a second from Jeff. Council, please vote. Did everyone get it? There we go. Motion passes unanimously. Next item up is ordinance number 9.293 on second reading. This is a bill for an ordinance approving the intergovernmental agreement between the Douglas County Clerk and Recorder and the Town of Parker regarding the conduct and administration of the November 5th, 2019 coordinated election. Mr. Jim Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In your packet tonight is the proposed intergovernmental agreement with Douglas County to conduct a coordinated election in November. Under the town's charter, you are authorized to engage in coordinated elections, and if you do, under state law, there has to be an intergovernmental agreement. And back in March, you did pass a resolution indicating your intent to participate in the coordinated election in November. The estimated cost for this election is $62,190.80. And again, that is an estimate. I would point out that this is different from the last election in which we had the candidate election. This is going to be a issue election, and typically the cost associated with an election is how much ballot space you take. So with the council election, you probably used 2 inches, maybe 3 inches of space. With this particular election, with 10 questions, including the excise tax ordinance that you passed this evening, you're looking at a very extensive ballot for the town of Parker, so it's going to be more expensive. The other thing is that in the general election for town council, we had several jurisdictions participating in that election. In this particular election, we only have a handful of jurisdictions. So the other ones participating are Littleton, West Metro Fire Protection District, and South Suburban. So less jurisdictions in which to spread the cost. Any questions, Mayor, Council?
Council, any questions for Jim?
I have one.
Cheryl.
I had submitted some questions earlier today, but we didn't get to it in the study session. So what I'm looking at is, on average, is this cost increase also impacted by any legislation that was required by the state, considered an unfunded mandate?
Yeah, I do not know if House Bill 19-1278 is going to cause an increase in the cost of the election. That's where you're going to have more centers, election voting centers. All I can tell you is that our cost is more, I think, principally because of the size of the ballot and the fact that we have a Tabor question, and with the Tabor question, there's going to be a mailing to every registered elector of the town. And so looking at the IGA in your packet, that's about 1/3 of the total cost is going to be devoted just to the Tabor question.
The other part of that action then was also to extend open poll time. Are we going to be required to do that?
We're going to have to comply with state law, and if that is the state law, absolutely. And again, that's something that the county clerk and recorder will have to comply with.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions for Jim? All right.
Thank you.
None. Thank you. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment at 7:59 PM. If there's anyone here to address council on coordinated election. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:59, and I'll entertain further discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve ordinance number 9.293 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Debbie, and that's then a second by John. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And with no further business before council, we will adjourn at 8 PM. Have a good evening, everybody. Go home and buy your full Monty ticket.